Hello everyone, back to today's second video. So we've done the summer analogues part 2. You can find the video to that here on the homepage. Just scroll down a bit underneath the link ads. That can be placed on the summer updates and forecast page later on. There'll be a written post that goes with that. That'll probably be this evening. So if you couldn't watch the video all in one go, you'll be able to see about the summer analogues, looking specifically at warm marches and the summers that followed those warm marches for this particular analogues update. So I'll let you have a look at that and see what you think. This is regards to this Sunday round, so we're going to get various things together. We'll be looking at solar activity. We'll be looking at the QBO this week as well. Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, all that kind of thing, and the weather for the next week to 10 days as well. So a bit of an eclectic mix of different stuff for this Sunday lunchtime. Just say later on today, I think we're going to do a snow watch because there is going to be some wintry potential over the next couple of days. Wind's going to be turning into the north tomorrow, and those northerly winds will still be with us on Tuesday and Wednesday. There will be wintry potential, and we'll have a look and see what that wintry potential is and where it is on Snow Watch we've seen. I think this might be the latest I've ever done a Snow Watch, although interestingly we did get a very potent northerly wind around the end of April last year, so I can't remember if I did Snow Watch at the end of April last year or not, but it's interesting that the 2 years are panning out quite similarly in terms of northerly winds at the end of April. Anyway, Snow Watch coming up this evening, probably around 4 or 5 o'clock, something like that. Starting off with this picture that was sent through to us from Mark Kinish on the Wirral. This is Liverpool Cathedral, Catholic Cathedral, and I think taken on Friday. The cathedral there looking very nice in the April sunshine. Thanks to Mark sending that through. If you've got any pictures that you'd like to have featured in the videos, you can email them to us, gazservice@gmail.com, or post them in the comment box at GWV, so we're always happy to feature those pictures when we have time. Right, starting off with the solar activity then first of all. So this is the solar disk on our side for this day from solarham.net. We can see we've got a couple of sunspots, quite a big area of sunspots just there. Another one over here. However, solar activity is officially at very low levels at the moment. This is the GWV Spring Season Daily Solar Tracker. This has been updated as of this morning from our good friend James Ackfield. James just sent this through. Big thanks to James as ever for keeping this updated for us. So we're still trending upwards actually with solar activity at the moment. The trend lines, which is the thick green line there and the thick orange line, still moving upwards. Although overall we are in the declining part of the solar cycle, of course. But at the moment, we're still getting these little spikes in sunspots. So we had quite a big one, of course, a couple of weeks ago at the start of April. That was the biggest spike in sunspot numbers for over a year, actually. Then a bit of a crash downwards, and then we've lifted up again a little bit with those sunspots, not getting back anywhere to this sort of level, but we are still getting sunspots coming through, although at quite a low level, and overall, because of that big ramp up that took place at the beginning of April, the trend lines, as I say, which are indicated by the thick green and thick red line there, trend lines are still ticking upwards. Very shortly, I would assume, we'll get another drop down, because you see the general idea is that we move upwards and then we move down a bit and then we move up, then we go down, and then we get a spike upwards and then it's down again, spike up, down again, spike up. So we're bound to get another drop in the trends quite shortly, I would think. And this one probably will go to a lower level than we've been before. And that's the way we go into solar minimum. It's not a linear process. It doesn't happen with every single day sort of reducing those sunspot numbers. You'll get a spike in sunspots and then you'll go to a lower level. and then you're going to spike again and then down to a lower level and so on, until eventually we will arrive in solar minimum. In around 18 months' time, we will get several weeks, if not months, of no sunspots at all. Reason we look at solar activity is because there appears to be a connection between low levels of solar activity and an increased increased chance of northern blocking. Northern blocking is the route to pushing cold out of the pole and down into the mid-latitude. So essentially, low levels of solar activity around solar minimum or just after solar minimum tends to be the greatest chance of getting blocked and colder winters. So if you've not got many sunspots, it can sometimes, particularly for Europe, be a signal for colder weather during the winter. As ever, we will keep the GWV solar tracker updated. This is what's going on in the oceans at the moment. So we've got the Pacific, of course, over here, and the Atlantic Ocean is over there, dealing with the Pacific first of all. The Northern Pacific still looking quite cool. The temperature anomalies there, sea surface temperature anomalies there look quite cool, although close to the Pacific northwest coast of Canada and America, actually the temperatures are beginning to lift up there a little bit in terms of the SSTs. But overall, Northern Pacific is still looking quite cool. We're trying to get El Nino going here through the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. Not really coming to much at the moment, although very gradually these temperatures are lifting up. Actually, we're going to look at ENSO, what's happening in the equatorial Pacific Ocean next Saturday. So if you are interested in what's going on in terms of El Nino or that kind of thing, next Saturday we'll have the April update for that. In the Atlantic, it's quite interesting what's happening in the tropics, because it appears to be getting quite warm down there through the tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean. That's important for the summer because warm sea surface temperatures around this area, they can be sort of a breeding ground, a spawning ground for hurricanes. And we might, if we keep these warm sea surface temperature anomalies going through the equatorial Pacific, through the equatorial Atlantic, I should say, we might start to have to think about the risk of a bigger hurricane season than we've had for a little while. Though last year was quite a big hurricane season, actually, but we haven't had a really big hurricane season since 2012. It would be unusual to have an El Nino developing with an active hurricane season, but both the tropical Atlantic and the tropical Pacific are looking quite warm at the moment. Further north in the Atlantic, the sea surface temperature anomalies still looking quite cold to the south of Greenland, and also cold, interestingly, over towards the Caribbean and close to that southeastern coast of America. So this part of the Atlantic looks quite cool, and down here it's getting quite warm. I haven't looked at this for a little while. This is the QBO, the quasi-biennial oscillation. This is an index that's reflecting the strength of the westerlies. So when the QBO is in its westerly phase, then you have enhanced zonal westerlies across you have enhanced zonal westerlies across the northern hemisphere. So it's a signal, if you like, for stronger westerlies through the mid-latitudes in the northern hemisphere. When the QBO is easterly, the zonal westerlies are weakened. So essentially, at its most crude, a westerly QBO is kind of like a signal for mild conditions, particularly in winter, strength of westerlies, and an easterly QBO is a signal for weakened westerlies and therefore an increased chance of colder conditions in the northern hemisphere, and particularly through the Atlantic and Europe. Now, we have the failure of the easterly QBO last year. So we should have gone into an easterly QBO through 2016. It had a go at getting going there at the start of 2016. You can see a signal from that white area. But the westerly QBO hung on, and then through the second half of 2016, actually, the westerly QBO indicated by this dark grey area, the westerly QBO strengthened again. So last winter should have been an easterly QBO. Actually, it was a westerly QBO, and certainly back to 1950, probably back further than that, the QBO has never done that. It's kind of like a pulse that is very regular, and it shouldn't be deviating in that way. So we saw something that's never happened before, as far as we know, with the QBO through the course of 2016. Now, we're still in the westerly QBO. You can see that quite clearly. This is where we are right now, still in the westerly QBO. And this westerly QBO started in early 2015, so it has gone on a very, very long time. But we might be just trying to trying to see the first signs of the easterly QBO having a go at getting going again. If I zoom you in a bit closer, there's not much to see, but that black line just there and the white area here, that might be the beginnings of the easterly QBO at the very top level of the atmosphere. Might be the beginnings of the easterly QBO trying to get going once again. We'll certainly be in westerly QBO conditions for the remainder of this spring and summer. By the time we get through to autumn, and then on into winter of 2017-2018, it's possible that the easterly QBO will be strengthening. I will be very surprised if we see another failure of the easterly QBO. So we may well, in the second half of this year, begin to go into that very delayed easterly QBO. That will be something we'll be keeping an eye on when we start the winter updates from September. This is what's going on in terms of Arctic sea ice extent. So we are at a very low level at the moment in terms of Arctic sea ice. This blue line is this year, 2017. We're underneath the trend, of course. That's the thick grey line there. That's the something like the 15-year average, trend average, I think. And this green dash line just here, that is 2012. Which turned into a death spiral in terms of Arctic sea ice. We went down to a very big crash, if you like, in terms of the melt season through the course of 2012. We're underneath that at the moment, but it's possible as we get through later on into the melt season, we might see something like that happening, and we might well finish up above 2012 in terms of the total melt season for this year. But we're starting off from a pretty low level at the moment. That's where we are right now in terms of how much Arctic sea ice we've got. Arctic Oscillation next. So this is an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere in the North Pole. It isn't driving anything, just telling you what the atmosphere is doing. The black line here tells where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. The red lines where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. We go right way back into start of the winter over here, and overall the winter and into the spring, into March, was a positive Arctic Oscillation period. So it tells us that we had low pressure close to the pole, and we generally kept the cold air bottled up in the polar regions. That's why we had essentially quite a mild winter, although Europe, particularly East and Southeastern Europe, was quite cold. Where we are right now with the Arctic Oscillation is that we've gone negative, so we've got high pressure up over the pole, and that's pushed the Arctic Oscillation into negative territory. Overall, the trend is to keep it negative. It looks like it's going to spike up a little bit just there in around a week's time. But then the trend very much is back into negative again. So we might well be moving into an extended period of negativity of the Arctic Oscillation. The AO and its cousin, the NAO, they tend to move in blocks of 3 or 4 months. We've had around 3 or 4 months of positive AO condition. Looks like we may well be moving into extended period of negative AO condition. If we are, it means we're likely to, certainly at the start of the summer anyway, have quite a lot of high pressure up over the pole. And if we set up a trough underneath it, then we might have a fairly cool and unsettled start to the summer of 2017. The NAO very similar, although that is still trending positive, actually. So the black line here again tells us where we've been with the North Atlantic Oscillation. Red lines at the end where GFS ensembles forecasting the NAO to go. We was positive with the NAO through most of the winter and into spring. And unlike the Arctic Oscillation, which is currently negative and is forecast to stay generally negative, other than that little spike, but we get it in around a week's time, the NAO is still positive, and it's forecast to be staying positive as well into the early part of May over here. So the two indexes, the AO and the NAO, are a little bit conflicting at the moment. However, I think it's probably the AO, I should say, this time of year that tends to be most important, and that's going to deliver us, because we've got the high pressure over pole, that's going to deliver us into quite a potent northerly wind during the coming few days. GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles next, the next couple of weeks. The red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average. There's our cold snap that we've got coming up over the next few days. We really are going to feel that northerly wind. However, as we go through to the start of May, we are seeing a warming trend now. So this is the 1st of May just here. And the GFS ensembles are lifting up with those upper air temperatures, going above average by the look of it into the first week to 10 days of May. So a definite warming trend is taking place, and there are several members of the GFS ensembles through this first week of May that are turning really quite warm indeed. Now, this happened last year as well. At the end of April, we had this big, a big northerly snap. Got really cold. There was late snow in places, and there was also damaging night frost as well. And then through the early part of May last year, very quickly we switched into a much warmer pattern. It looks like that's the way this could well be going again for this year. So quite remarkable consistency really between the two years. The precipitation, with this colder weather over the next few days, we have got some precipitation spikes. Most of that for the south is just going to be rain or possibly hail, and there is a risk of thunder as well. Further north, though, there will be a risk of wintry conditions, especially, but perhaps not exclusively, over high ground. And I'll update Snow Watch later on today, so we can see what the wintry potential could be over the next 2 or 3 days. For early May, it turns drier for a time, and then perhaps turns a little bit wetter again, although that's right at the very extended range of the ensemble. Overall, still nothing to suggest we're going to break the prolonged dry spell that we had. Yes, we are going to get some precipitation in the coming days, but it doesn't look like there's a definitively wet period there to start to make up the rainfall deficit that we've seen over the past few months. I saw something on Twitter from BBC and the UK Met Office the other day that suggested we've had our driest period since last summer, probably since around 1995, which was the last time we had a proper drought. So it has been very dry over the past few months, to say the least. Temperature anomalies are still looking very cold for many parts of Europe. So this is the anomaly from the 23rd of April through to the 1st of May. And virtually all parts of Europe coming out colder than average. We've seen this quite a bit over the past few days. We've been looking at these charts. And it is quite unusual to see the whole of Europe, from Portugal and Ireland in the far west over to Russia in the east and all places in between, colder than average. So certainly getting our quota of colder weather across Europe at the moment. I would expect these to start trending warmer over the next few days, particularly so for the western part of Europe. Precipitation anomalies, a little bit more rainfall coming up for the UK over the next week. When we've been looking at these charts for a long time, they've generally been signalling very dry conditions, but you'll notice certainly for the north it does look a bit wetter with the anomaly for the next week. Southern areas and many parts of France still hanging on to dry conditions. Most parts of Europe actually looking quite unsettled in the week ahead. So there's that northerly with the GFS for Tuesday. We're really going to feel that northerly wind. As I say, update Snow Watch later on. into the second half of the week, this high pressure starts to topple in from off the Atlantic, begins to revert winds into west. So the second half of the week will become less cold. It's going to be a slow process to lift the temperatures up, but by the end of the week into the weekend, I think we will start to see the temperatures becoming closer to average. Into the bank holiday weekend, and we're starting off on a wet and windy note here on Saturday. That looks rather unpleasant, especially so for the north, where there's a very strong wind indeed. That continues to Sunday the 30th of April. And then into bank holiday Monday, signs of an improvement with ridging beginning to push up from the south as this low pressure starts to weaken in the Atlantic. So it might be an improving bank holiday weekend, starting off wet and windy, finishing up fairly dry and quite pleasantly warm as well. Up to day 10, which takes us to Wednesday the 3rd of May, we've got high pressure ridging through the country. It's going up to Scandinavia, and it's backing the wind into the east. So it's more settled there for the start of May, and it's warmer too, although with this easterly flow we might get some showers into the eastern part of the country. East GWV finally, and again we've got that northerly wind persisting up to the middle part of the week. Then the wind backs into the west as we move into the bank holiday weekend. So we start the bank holiday weekend looking quite unsettled, maybe wet and windy. Stays unsettled through to bank holiday Monday, which is Monday the 1st of May, of course. Again, the winds are coming in from the southwest, so it's not going to be cold, it'll be quite warm. But there might be some rain, particularly so for the north and for the west. And then as we go to day 10, which is Wednesday the 3rd of May, we start to strengthen the high pressure. So from Tuesday the 2nd to Wednesday the 3rd, we begin to build this ridge up from the Azores across many western parts of Europe. That will start to pull up much warmer air from the south. That's the kind of chart we look at to begin to get a very warm spell going. So, as I say, we get through to the early part of May, very much along the lines of what happened last year, and we might see the temperatures really starting to push up quite a lot, maybe going up towards the mid-20s Celsius after we have frost and snow in the latter part of April. Just going to show you how quickly things can change at this time of the year. So that's it for GWV Sunday Round Up today. Don't forget to check out the Summer Analogues Part 2 video, and that'll be placed on the Summer Updates page later with that written report to go with it. And of course, around 5 o'clock this evening, we're going to have a quick look at Snowwatch, see what wintry potential is for the next few days. Right, that's all for now. Enjoy the rest of Sunday. Thanks for watching.